Well, good morning or afternoon, wherever you're from. Thanks for joining us for this webinar. We're going to be talking about governing AI with confidence. And a couple topics I'm going to dive into today are general AI safety, red teaming. If you don't know what that is, I'll kind of explain it to you. And a lot of this is going to be centered around compliance within Microsoft Purview. But before I get started, I guess you guys might want to know who I am. My name is Brian Haydin. I'm a solution architect here at Concurrency. Just a couple little fun facts about me. Obviously, I'm a little bit of an outdoorsman. You can see from the pictures. I'm the chief nerd here at Concurrency. Love playing with toys. I've got two kids, a 17-year-old daughter and a 10-year-old son. Married, and I guess the fun fact about me is that I'm a twin. So follow me on LinkedIn. I've got a tech tracker blog that I write every couple of weeks or so, trying to take outdoor analogies to, to explain some of these technology, conversations that I have and make it a little bit fun. You'll probably see some of the outdoorsy stuff coming out, through today. But why are we here? So, generative AI adoption is absolutely exploding this year. 2023 was kind of like the breakout year, and as current state now, 95% of enterprises, according to some studies, I've got some links here, Trustmark and IT Pro studies, but 95% of enterprises are at least piloting or deploying some Gen AI, today already. And 30% of them are, maybe 30% of them have, some sort of governance in place. And I think that's going to be a problem as we move through this over the next year. It's kind of like, being, just like, I'm just going to go fishing on Lake Michigan. And for those of you that are in the Midwest, Lake Michigan's pretty big, can get pretty dangerous. It's like just going out there in the middle of a fog and saying, I'm just going to wing it, and figure it out when I get there. Not a really great idea. So, let's see if we can, come up with some strategies today, what you should be doing, what you should be thinking about in order to get you and your organization ready for AI. And at the core of this, we're looking to ensure trust, ensure safety, and compliance if it applies to your organization, because these are things that are no longer optional. It's pretty much going to be mandatory. And so let's size up the AI landscape. I'm going to talk a little bit about Microsoft's security stack, kind of like what you're going to take into your survival kit and put in your backpack. We'll probably spend a lot of time talking about Purview, more than I would like to, because I prefer to write code. But then we'll head out and we'll do some AI red teaming. And I've got a bunch of different stories that we're going to be sprinkling in today to help you understand it. So, all right, gold rush. 99% of companies are expected to use AI. And the big stories that we hear from our customers, or the biggest reasons why they want to do it, are typically productivity gains. That's the number one idea that people come to us with. New revenue, which is the ones that typically get the most traction, and then cost savings, as well. So that also is is pretty important. And I think executives are starting to smell gold. And so they're panning AI for some gold, and trying to find out where they should make their investments. But if you think back to like the history of the gold rush, I mean, there were all sorts of problems, busted wagons, abandoned mines, and in tech terms, that's kind of like more like data leaks and hallucinations and biased outcomes. So so now, after this breakout year in 2023 and sort of like, escalation in 2024, 2025 is where I think that the majority of these organizations are going to start taking action, and not just surviving through like this flood of, like the gold rush, but actually thriving in the intelligence age. So, start off with a story. Samsung, this goes back a couple of years, an older story, but maybe hopefully a lot of you remember this. But Samsung, some of the engineers were playing around with ChatGPT because it's what everybody wanted to do, is play with ChatGPT. And they accidentally leaked some of their proprietary chip code into ChatGPT. And at the time, ChatGPT, like as a disclaimer, their policy, just used whatever people put into it to help them reprompt or re-engineer their model. And so within days of this leak happening, the legal team at Samsung, got completely panicked, productivity tanked, and they put a kibosh on ChatGPT, blocked it, and said, we're done. So big, huge PR headache, not just for Samsung, but also for like AI in general. And that's where over the last couple of years, a lot of organizations are really worried about that. It's not as much of a consideration. We'll get to the reasons why, but definitely is something that you want to be thinking about as you deploy different solutions. So I want you to like picture sunrise. Maybe you're going out for some steelhead on the lake. The fog rolls in. Your GPS is starting to glitch out a little bit. What's the thing that you usually go to when you're stuck like that? You got this like nice little compass on your boat, and that one is, just using the magnetic north, and it works all the time. So let's look at some tools that we can use that are going to have that sort of always working, simple but reliable, type of solutions. So here, I'm thinking more along like data protection, privacy compliance, red teaming and adversarial testing and ongoing monitoring are all the kind of things that our compass is going to point us towards. And let's figure out which tools, we can use to keep us to, true north or true west or true east. So governance, good governance is going to be funneling in trust, safety, and compliance. So safety, making sure that no one falls overboard. Trust, is making sure that your crew really believes in the plan. And compliance is like when the Coast Guard comes and says, do you have all the things that you need on your boat? They're going to give you the thumbs up. And so the goals of governance are really in the state of AI is to secure your data. And there's a lot of tools that will help you do that. Test the resiliency of what you've actually built and the controls that you've put in place. Make it safe for you to develop and share your intellectual property, your services, through a variety of different platforms. Help you with real-time threat protection. So being able to identify when things happen, just like you would a DDoS attack, and giving the ability to have continuous monitoring, throughout. And in the Microsoft stack, really what we're looking at is a few different tools that bundles up every layer of the defense into like one single backpack. So you've got identity, you have data, model safety, runtime defenses, and then your monitoring aspect. And so if one of those fails, you need to have resiliency across the platform, make sure that everything is has everybody's back. So the security stack in Microsoft generally comprises of this list of items. So at the core of it is going to be identity, and there's some exciting new features that came out this year around identity with AI. So identity and access management, and that's really what we're talking about is users or like even like system users or like an agent is a user. And then Microsoft Purview is like the general data layer, kind of component. So this is where it's going to help you classify and do labeling and protect the data and DLP policies. You've got Microsoft Defender for Cloud and Defender for AI. So that provides a little bit of visibility and hardening into your implementations. The Azure AI Foundry has some fantastic new features around content safety, prompt shields, and securing your AI development, kind of at that at that system layer, not so much just at the developers are responsible for it, but actually building it into the infrastructure layer. And then Microsoft Sentinel and Security Copilot. Security Copilot's pretty cool in terms of the interactions and stuff. I don't have any real-time examples. Not going to do any demos today, but if you get a chance to play with it, it's fantastic to be able to help you uncover and triage, in real time, same way that you would use your M365 Copilot. So on the identity layer, let's start off and dig into the Entra Agent ID. And so this is new. We're entering into an era where AI agents aren't just like tools anymore. It's not just something that you deploy to teams, but they're like catalysts for smarter work and more empowered ways of working. And Microsoft's, at Microsoft Build, they sort of got into this like it was really all about agents this year, and now we're kind of becoming agent bosses and not just using agents to do things, but we're managing a bunch of agents that are doing work on our behalf. And so in order for this to work, we have to think of them as coworkers, and coworkers have identities, and so now Microsoft Entra supports Entra identity agent IDs. And so what does this really actually look like? So identities now are assigned through Entra and paired to agents. And so when you look at your security risks and threats assessments, you'll start to see these identities show up as well. So visibility is critical, to organizations as you build new AI solutions, and you want to be able to see which agents have access to what components in your environment, and the agent ID through Entra, how that's actually going to be managed. And so you're going to start to see that now. You should be able to use that and find these agents within your Active Directory, today. So next, kind of layer, the data layer, is Microsoft Purview. And so it's like the map maker of your data lake, right? Not data lake in the context of Fabric, but you're in the context of my analogy. So drawing boundaries and adding don't swim here signs when it's needed. So Microsoft Purview, the things people probably know about it the most is that it scans your data, your documents, or even inside of Fabric, scanning your data, and it can classify and attach sensitivity labels to the data. And so that you don't have to just go into a document and say, oh, these have a bunch of social security numbers. It's going to identify the fact that it has social security numbers and label that as sensitive information, from the gate. And then it enforces the labels end to end, even within the AI prompts. Microsoft Purview is starting to really become ingrained into the 365 Copilot, type of solutions as well. So Microsoft's layer, the data layer Purview, you've got data security, data governance, and then the risk and the compliance stuff are all components of the offering that allow you to maintain a secure and compliant system. On the application side, I mentioned some of the things of that are built into the Azure ecosystem as well. And around building applications, the predominant tool these days for pro code developers is Azure AI Foundry, and that's where you're really going to forge custom copilots. And so what's important here is having the security rails, being baked into the solution, being able to implement with RBAC and network isolation, prompt shielding as a middleware component. So we're not really duct taping things together. And the major things that they have put in place here are content safety, like text content moderation and image content moderation. You can configure security alerts for when people do things outside of the boundaries, what you're expecting or what you want them to do. There's a lot of, and from the get-go, they've had safety policies that have looked for things like hate and violence, or even fairness, and self-harm. And then I did mention network isolation and being able to use private endpoints and networking security. That is also being built into the AI Foundry as well. So it's, supporting these kind of solutions and scenarios where you want to have it just internal, or you want to be able to really limit the exposure to the chatbots or however you're using your LLMs. And then finally, like the prompt shield. So being able to, at the infrastructure level, really start to protect yourself against injection attacks and things along those natures. So we're protecting ourselves, at the application level, as well through these tools. But once the bot is live, what are you going to do? How are you going to manage that? And so the Azure AI Content Safety is, is a tool that you can use within Azure AI Foundry as well. And so what you're going to do is set up filters, almost like you're, out on the hiking trail and you run out of water and you got to use like the water filter straw. But it's going to do, it's going to like look at that stuff in real time and filter out things that might be offensive language or hateful imagery. And it's before it ever even really hits the user. It's, sometimes even before it hits the LLM. So it's a runtime defense to keep your system safe, and so you don't have to worry too much about it. And it comes out of the box as well. So there's a lot of pre-configured filters, set up for you. Getting real-time security recommendations. So once I have something that's built, I can go into AI Foundry and I can get some security recommendations. And I don't have to, I don't have to be a super technical expert to get the recommendations and what should I do to actually correct that. So really fantastic features that they're starting to develop, within the ecosystem. Microsoft Defender gives you that threat visibility. So it's like the drone eyes view of every AI asset across your entire ecosystem, and that could be Azure, AWS, GCP. It looks for like exposed API keys, misconfigured storage buckets, out-of-date libraries that might exist, and so it'll generate these security alerts for you and monitor the activities, and keep you up to date to any kind of deficiencies that you might have in your system. And I also mentioned a little bit earlier security Copilot. So this is like your SOC integration, and all these alerts that we talked about through like Microsoft Defender. Once that happens, like analysts are going to get assigned a ticket, and generally, like the first thing is like, what happened, right? Show me what happened. So analysts could ask the security Copilot, like, show me the potential prompt injections that happened last week. And then help me figure out like a filter that I should be configure in order to prevent these injection attacks. And so these threads, help you get faster answers to what you're looking for, and have been, most of the SREs that I've been working with are using Security Copilot just because it's fantastic and gets them quickly through their call queue. So stories. Another story is, I don't know if you remember when Windows Recall like got called out on the carpet. And so if you don't know what Windows Recall is, it's kind of like this feature in Windows that acts like your PC's like photographic memory and sort of captures snapshots of what you're working on and what you see, and it kind of lets you go back to a state, a working state, not like rolling back to like an install state, but more like to a working state. And so these screenshots were silently capturing like, every app's content, and a lot of privacy people got into like an uproar. Microsoft wound up hitting pause, and, Brave like actually put like, disable Windows Recall feature into, into their browsers. So there's a lot of backlash that happened. And lesson learned here is that runtime governance and transparent content really aren't like, optional accessories, but you have to be careful about it and be transparent about it as well. so that you don't cause a bunch of concerns or privacy concerns for your users as well. So how would we kind of like mitigate that is looking at the gear updates throughout the year. We went through some of these already, but these are the release dates just this year. Defender SPM, multi-cloud kind of like preview is coming out. Microsoft launched their Enter Agent ID. DLP for Copilot. I've got a couple of cool slides on that coming up. And you can see like throughout the year, we've got new investments, new releases, new things that are going from preview to GA, throughout this year, and it's happening very, very quickly. So they keep sharpening, their tools, and it's, important for you to keep an eye on those blogs so you can stay current and take advantage of these features that are coming out. So let's dive into a couple of these, in a little bit more detail. So data security posture management for AI is in Microsoft Purview. These are basically default policies that are set up, and I've listed a few of them here, like detect sensitive info that's been being added to AI sites, or detect when users even visiting AI sites, detect sensitive information that's being shared. And so you could set up these policies in Microsoft Purview, and it's kind of like showing you where unlabeled PII lurks and which sites are over permissioned and which Copilot sessions might be referencing sensitive things. So green means clean, and red means there's like sharks in the water looking for blood. So fantastic tools to help you kind of monitor that. If you look at the out-of-the-box policies, there's probably 15 to 20 of them that are pretty relevant to most organizations. I mentioned DLP for Copilot, and so one thing we can think of this is like you can tell Copilot hands off anything that's labeled like top secret. Policies can be put in place to really limit what Copilot, M365 Copilot has the ability to do. But it's now doing DLP checks directly, at the chat level, and checking the files as well to make sure that it's not pulling data that it shouldn't, be pulling. It's always had the feature in place where where Copilot only can answer or talk about documents or data that you have access to, but now it's taking it to the next level with like the security posture. The compliance manager in Purview has ships with ready-made checklists for like the EU AI Act, things along like that nature. So you don't necessarily need like to go bushwhacking through the mountains on your own. You've got a compliance partner with all the compliance templates that the compliance manager offers. It's not just the assessments or the checklists, but it's also workflows to help you efficiently get through it, or step-by-step guidance to improve your environment. And then the other thing that's kind of cool about it is it'll review what you have in place and give you a compliance score across a bunch of different metrics, and then coach you how to increase that score, over time. So I did mention like sensitivity labels through Purview, and I just wanted to like talk about that for a second. So they're like trail markers, in the AI system. So they guide AI models, along the safe routes and making sure that you have access or you're going in the right direction. And if you don't have the appropriate labeling in place, it's like taking all the signs out of the wilderness or taking all the signs off the trailer. So sooner or later, somebody's gonna, fly off the cliff. AI did a really good job of making that image for me. But you don't want to have that happen. So what are some things that we can do to test our system? And you may or may not have heard the term red teaming before. And that like historically has described a process that people go through, like basic penetration testing, adversarial attacks through a systematic, testing paradigm. But now with AI, red teaming is like it's taking on a little bit of a different twist, and so AI red teaming is really comprised of doing things like probing, testing, and attacking your AI systems, and it's evolving into a more complex, more rich kind of way of doing penetration testing. So at the end of the day, red teaming can be, broken into 5 steps that you kind of rinse and repeat, through a cycle. So plan out your scenarios, probe it with some attacks, get a report that tells you about what the findings are, resolve any of those findings, or, figure out what those weaknesses are and what you're going to do to mitigate those weaknesses, and then retest, until you get to like a success rate of 0. The issue with this is that, like, it's difficult, right? Like all the different ways, like how are you supposed to know how to deal with this? And, before I talk about the solutions, let's talk a little bit about like real life. Why is this important? So I don't know, most people, actually, it's kind of weird. Not a lot of people know about this, or like people that I talk to are like, I didn't really realize this. But Google Gemini released, one of their models recently, and got into like, I don't want to say trouble, but they got called out pretty quickly because people were noticing a lot of biases that were built into the model. And so some of the really egregious ones were, show me some pictures of German soldiers, and the German soldiers were, based on like diversity photos. And rather than sweeping it under the rug, they came out right away and said, "Hey, we messed up. We get it. We understand." They took that model offline pretty quickly to control the brand damage, and then rolled it out. I think it was maybe like 1 or 2 weeks later. Um, but really, what would have saved them here is this red teaming aspect of it, and having the right kind of testing process in place to look for those kind of biases. And so I think that's an important like lesson learned out of this is, how do you make sure that you're not just pushing stuff out there to get it out there because it's cool, but making sure that it doesn't have the biases or the data exposure that that could get your company or organization in trouble. And so, so red teaming is a solution for this, and we're going to dive a little bit into the tooling here. But Microsoft's been doing this red teaming workload for quite a while. So all the way back into like the 2010s is when the first kind of AI red teaming showed up. And their mantra is like, we break it so you can build it back stronger. They've got the tools, they have the playbooks, they have the threat taxonomies, and it's all part of like what they put into place, as an out-of-the-box solution. I remember talking with the red teaming team at Microsoft Build this year, and I was just blown away on how easy it was for you to just point this at your new agents and say, give me a report on what's going wrong with it. So what does it do? You have basically pre-built scans that says, go run my red team scan, and 5, 10, 15 minutes later, depending on it, you're going to get a scorecard, red, green, telling you like what were the results, what were the prompt injection results on it, what kind of data exfiltration did I get, and then a detailed report on each one of the incidents that it was able to uncover, and then a risk categorization and like what kind of exposure it is. So and this is relatively out of the box, but also gives you the ability to configure those tests as well. And so you can build this as part of your CI/CD pipeline or your MLOps pipeline, and continuously monitor the deployments of the models that you're building and generating and deploying into the public. And so just to give you a little bit more view into like what this looks like. I mean, there's some coding aspect to it as well. So giving you that kind of configurability to it. And so but it's not a lot, it's not really heavy, in terms of being able to get this up and running. Um, so you want a little bit more open source freedom. So Pirate is a toolkit that kind of goes along with this, and can generate like schedules and scores of adversarial prompts to build into your pipelines as well. They've got a open source GitHub repo here that I put the link on here. But the main components of Pirate are really, the prompts, the orchestrators, converters, targets, and scoring. And all this kind of works cohesively as a library that you can use within your system. So definitely go check that out. And start to think about it. That's going to benefit your organization, incorporate into your development workloads. So take a deep breath. I've been speaking really, really fast, haven't I? So like taking like just a step back and thinking about what we've been talking about. Mountaineers they do these things called shakedown hikes, if you're not familiar. But before they go biking or hiking on Mount Everest, they're gonna like hike around with their full packs. And so red teaming is kind of like that, right? It's like a shakedown hike that you're gonna take before you roll things out. Discover where the blister points are before you get to the trailhead, not when you're at, 18, 19, 21,000 feet, and, need to, get to safety really quickly. So test before you're sent, simulate your adversary, minimize your, mid-mountain kind of failures by discovering those blister points earlier. Build out some of that team muscle memory. So having your Sherpas, along for the ride, making sure everybody knows what they're supposed to be doing. And then being able to practice so you get that muscle memory and learning how the terrain changes over time. Super important. Wanted to zoom a little bit more into Purview and break this down for you. So inside of Purview's, swim lane, really we're looking at three different areas. We're going to be classifying, the data. So that's auto discovery, your sensitive data, your label application, and making your AI aware, for scanning and prompt purposes. So Purview really ensures that AI knows what data is off limits before it actually goes and sees it. So then we have to build in a protection layer, kind of like your water filter, right? So in here, you're doing DLP for Copilot. You've got your Azure OpenAI DLPs as well. You've got label inheritance across the AI generated content. I'm going to show you a little bit what that looks like, and then enforcement of policies across like a bunch of different applications and services. So even if the AI generated output, has sensitivity labels, that output's going to have the same protections as the original document as well as is the idea. And then monitoring, right? So we want to make sure that we, have our AI activity audited and logged, and somebody can go back and look at it over time. Risk management for, insiders, and doing oversharing analysis and recommendations, some of the things that we're going to talk about in a minute. So if your AI goes rogue, you want to be able to see it before the PR team has to get engaged and put the fires out. So I did mention label inheritance, and I thought this was one of the coolest things that I saw at Microsoft Build. So I've got a document that's marked as confidential. I have a document that's marked as sensitive. It's got something in there. And I asked Copilot to go ahead and create a summary for me. It's going to do that because I have access to this document. But I want to make sure that I don't accidentally share that information as well. So that's what we're talking about here. And inside of Microsoft Copilot, you're going to see that those sensitivity labels start showing up like you do on the right side of the screen. So when I talk about that label inheritance, with Copilot, that's what I'm talking about. And I thought this was like an aha moment, for me at Microsoft Build, because it made me realize that LLMs don't care once they have once they're generating output, and how do I make sure that people can't share that information, outside. And so fantastic. I was really happy to see Microsoft pull that one together, and be able to see that, in person. It was pretty cool. Microsoft Purview, hats off to you. Oversharing. I talk to customers all the time about this, and Purview's got some tools that can actually help you with this in doing oversharing risk reports. So looking at a SharePoint site and what the permissioning is, because it's hard for people just to look at a site and say, who has access to it. I can go in to a Microsoft Teams site, which is SharePoint, and say, I want to share just this file with somebody. But if I just looked at the site, area, it's not really going to give me that, that view of who can see all the different documents. So having the ability to like scan and then make decisions on those is really important, and that's where the oversharing risk reports come in. So that that kind of like work up front is going to help you make sure that you don't have to bring your PR team back in to talk about other problems. Also in Purview is like communication compliance. So generating policies, Purview can flag like if employees AI chat is, harassing people or sneaky like data kind of requests, like asking for it in a couple of different ways. And it does this by, previewing the messages against different corporate policies, risk management policies, and regulatory compliance policies. Some of the key features that the communication compliance suite offers is, intelligent customizable templates that are, out of the box, remediation workflows that you can adjust, accordingly for your organization, and then the ability to generate actionable insights. So what am I actually going to do with this once I see these things happen? So bring this back into the real world and how this is important. So Concentric, did a study and found that like 40% of organizations deploy Copilot on data sets that are way too lenient, too broad, too lax, and they haven't really done a due diligence of this and are going to cause oversharing. So their study, if you read the TLDR on it, they were pretty blunt about it. Copilot has overly broad permissions. I wouldn't say that Copilot does. I would say that people are managing it poorly, so it has overly broad permissions, and that's causing a risk for your data exposure to be quite significant. If you look at 60% of the organizations haven't really put in governance controls in place, the chances are there are sensitive documents that can get overshared. And the other key takeaway is that organizations do need to be proactive. So go read this study. I thought it was pretty fascinating. And maybe at the end of it, you're going to make sure that you're not going to be the next headline in the news. Another quick story to sort of like bring up to button all this like governance together is in March of 2023, a bug in an open source library that ChatGPT used exposed some aspect of conversations and stuff like that. There's a bunch of like root causes and what actually happened, but at the end of the day, like message content, had some exposure, and it caused a bunch of, like PR nightmares. And so what did this, one of the lessons learned kind of goes back to, that red teaming conversation that I had before, and that you need to really think about testing your solutions, not just the AI components, but testing it holistically. And that's where the red teaming agent can come into play, because it, is a comprehensive suite of different types of things that might actually happen. And especially in multi-user and distributed systems. So for those of you that want to take screenshots, here's kind of the 4 or 5 different stories that I talked about today. But I wanted to bring this up because if you take a look at the lessons on each one of these, they kind of resonate, that the tooling is there for all these problems to have been remediated before they ever became an issue. DLP, red team tests, governance gaps, being able to do like, scans ahead of time, oversharing audits. So I think these tools that I talked about today are super important. And so if I was going to ask you to have like 3 kind of key takeaways today, I would say use your compass, use your purview labels and audits to keep you oriented in the right direction. Make sure that you have the AI security stack shields like in place so you can protect, every layer, every layer of the stack that you're using. And, be a part of the red team scouts, right? Like keep your eyes open, have somebody that's looking out for you over your shoulder. And that'll keep you on the right path for some safety. So hope you enjoyed it. If you want to get started on Monday, we can do a few things together, running some oversharing scans and piloting, some DLP rules. But there's a survey link, in the chat. And so first off, want to get your feedback. Tell me how I did. But also, if you're looking to take a next step or you want to learn a little bit more, here's a couple ways. Just reach out to us. We can do a AI governance readiness assessment, taking a look at some of the gaps that you might have in your organization and what we might recommend to remediate some of that. If you're looking for a demo on Microsoft Purview, we can walk you through how that can help you monitor and classify and mitigate some of the risks. And then last but not least, Microsoft's new funding, new fiscal year started this month. I guess it's technically still this month. And so we can explore opportunities to have Microsoft maybe pay for some of this on the partner-led funding, take a look at the funding initiatives they might have there as well. So hope you enjoyed it. And I take a quick little look here and see if there are any questions in the chat. But thanks a lot for joining us today.
Thanks, Brian. We did have a quick question in the Q&A section.
There we go. Are the Purview functions that we see here open to M365 business license standard license holders? Man, you're getting into the licensing question, Steve. On the business licensing, I'm not as familiar where Purview comes into play. I believe it's going to be some sort of an add-on security SKU, but somebody's going to shoot me and tell me that I'm wrong. But I'll tell you what, if you reach out to me, I will definitely get you an answer for that.
And we had one more question. Yes, the recording will be provided. Look out for an email later today with that link to the recording.
All right, fantastic. Thanks, Paige. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a good day.